Hello and welcome to my Burning Crusade dungeon leveling guide from 60 to 70. First up there's gonna be some information about dungeon farming, and next up it's gonna be what you can expect of this guide. I'm gonna show you where you can pick up the dungeon quest, but in case they require you to do a huge chain, then I'm actually gonna skip those. Each dungeon will give you at least 400 and all the way up to 1200 rep. It depends on the level and the amount of mobs in the dungeon. And this will result in you being at least honored with most of the factions once you reach level 70. You will also start the first part of the Kara Attunement guide, and in the end of the guide I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do at max level. This is a map of the dungeon zones and at what level I will stay in each zone. The first dungeon to do is Ramparts. There's no quest for this dungeon unless you do a huge chain. Once you kill the last boss in Ramparts, it's gonna drop this item. This will start a quest, which you turn in Fragment or Honor Hold. Hand in the quest and this will unlock a new quest for the other dungeon. Do notice that this quest you just did and the other one you will get doesn't require you to do any pre-quest in order to start it. All you had to do was to kill the last boss in Ramparts and loot the item. These are some of the nice items you can get from Fragment or Honor Hold reputation. The next two dungeons you can do is Underbog and Slave Pens. I'll start doing these two dungeons around level 62 and up to 64. The reason for this is by the time I'm 62, I'll be honored with either Fragment or Honor Hold. And once you're honored, you can't get reputation in low level normal dungeons anymore. For the dungeons where you can get exalted, I'll for sure let you know. The next dungeon is Mana Tombs. This dungeon is around 64 and all the way up to 66. At 64 you unlock two quests that you can pick up outside the dungeon. The quest Safety is job 1, is turned in inside the dungeon. If you turn in this quest, you will start an escort quest as well, so I recommend you kill the last boss before you do this, as the quest where you have to escort the guy will actually end at the entrance of the dungeon. This way you save time and all the quests you have done has to be turned in outside the dungeon. Hand in the quest and pick the rewards you need. I recommend you actually continue with this dungeon for probably a level, because this way you will be honored with Consortium, and after this you easily can go and grind lower city reputation with the dungeon right next to. These are some of the useful rewards from Consortium rep. So as I said, once you're honored with Consortium, go to Crypts and get your lower city reputation up. Sadly there's no quest for this dungeon unless you do a huge chain, but at the same time the reputation rewards from this faction is insanely good. At level 66 I'll hit to Daenerys to Caverns of Time. Before you run into the cave, make sure to talk to this dragon, as it will offer you a quest, which you have to do. Once the flight ends, there will be an NPC that you have to talk to. Hand in the quest and pick the follow-up. Next a guardian will be summoned. It's important you follow this one around the cave, and once you have done it, you can actually enter Old Hillsbrad Foothills. The reason why I recommend you go here at 66 is because this zone is gonna be crowded with world PvP at some point. Accept the follow-up quest and run inside the dungeon. At the beginning of the dungeon there's gonna be a blood elf. You have to turn in the quest here and get the bombs. Now talk to the dragon, which will actually let you fly to the place where you have to do the next quest. Close to the keep there will be some small houses. In here there will be some objects that you have to click on. There's 5 different houses and each house is gonna have one object that you have to click on. Click the last object and this will start a fire. Once the fire starts, a boss will spawn, and it's important you kill this guy. Once you have killed him, you have to enter the keep, and at the basement of the keep you will find Brawl. Hand in the quest, pick up the follow-up, and now you'll have to start escorting him. Once you have successfully escorted Brawl to safety and killed the last boss, you'll complete the quest. Hand it in and pick up the follow-up. Leave the dungeon and head back to where you actually picked up the first quest for the dungeon. You're now done with Old Hillsbrad, but you can continue with this for more Keeper of Time reputation. For tanks and paladins I really recommend this place. Once you reach level 68 you have 3 different options. You have Sethekk Halls, Black Morass and Kara Attunement quest. In order to do Sethekk Halls, which is Honor Hold and Fragment reputation all the way up to Exalted, you need a key. In order to get the key, you have to do a little chain. The chain is started close to Black Temple, up here. Kill this guy and loot the quest item. Now you're told to go to either Fragment or Underbog. In case you would like to see the whole chain, I have a guide for this, which I'll post in the description below the video. There might be two other ways to enter the dungeon. One is to find a rope with 350 skill in lockpicking, or you might actually be able to death skip the gate that prevents you from entering the dungeon. The quest I'm picking up right now is for Sethekk Halls. For Alliance there's 3 quests, and for Horde there's 2. Those are picked up in Underbog and Fragment. As a caster DPS or a healing class, Underbog and Fragment reputation is kinda good to farm, as there will be an epic weapon for casters, and you can actually get a head enchant as well, which will give you a lot of healing. The next thing you can do is to do Black Morass. Since we did Old Hillsbrad already, you are 2 for this dungeon. But the reason why I don't want to do this dungeon right now is because the last part of the Kara Attunement actually tells you to do BM. In case you still want to continue with Black Morass, you have a quest for this location that we got when we actually completed Old Hillsbrad. This quest tells you to just clear the dungeon, and once you have done it, you can turn it in. Turn it in at the beginning of the dungeon and now head outside. Outside you can turn in the next part, which will give you a lot of rep and a nice blue ring. Your last option is to start the Kara Attunement quest. This is the one I prefer and I always do. In order to start the quest line, you have to head outside Kara. Here there will be 2 quests you can pick up. The first thing you have to do is to enter this tomb. At the end of it, you can use the quest item, and once you have done this, you leave the tomb again. Once you leave the tomb, there will be a cave. Enter this cave, and here you have to use the quest item once again at the water. At the same time, you will also have to finish the other quest, where you need to collect 10 essence. Once you have done this, head back outside Kara and turn in the quest. You'll now get a follow-up, and this one will tell you to go to Dalaran in Hillsbrad Foothills. The reason why I do this at 68 and not 70 is to save time, but at the same time also to make sure I avoid a lot of world PvP in this area. Hand in the quest, and the follow-up will simply tell you to go back to Sethekk City. Now you have actually done the solo part of the quest chain, and next will be the dungeon part, where you have to collect different fragments. The first dungeon you have to do is Shadow Labyrinth, but in order to get into Shadow Labyrinth you need a key, and this key is collected inside Sethekk Halls. For Sethekk Halls there will be 2 quests. One of them is where you have to free a guy and kill the first boss, and then you also have to collect some stuff from the bosses and underground. Kill the boss, and once you have done this, there will be a guy in this cage. Make sure to open the cage and free the guy, as this will be one of the quests you have to do. And of course make sure you loot the quest item from the boss as well. Before the last boss there will be a book. Loot this book, as this will be a quest object as well. Now you'll simply have to kill the last boss, loot the item from this guy, and at the same time run to the chest that I'm doing right now, loot the key for Shadow Labyrinth, and now you have actually finished the dungeon and can go right into Shadow Labyrinth. The 2 quests you did has to be turned in right outside the dungeon. Finish Shadow Labyrinth, and right next to the last boss you will find this object. You have to click on this object and this will summon a mini boss. Kill the boss, loot the item, and now you simply have the first fragment. Head back to Sethekk City to turn in the quest and pick the follow-up. The follow-up quest will tell you to get the second and the third fragment. The second fragment can be found in Sankermarsh and Steamwall. Right outside Steamwall, there's also a quest that tells you to kill the last boss inside the dungeon. Do this for a really nice reward. For the second fragment, you will have to jump in the water. The water is placed right next to the first boss. Jump down here, right click the object, summon the mini boss again, and kill it. And now you'll simply have the second fragment. After this, you have to complete the rest of the dungeon for the other quest. The third fragment is not gonna be obtainable at this point, as you will need Flying Mount and the Arcatraz key. So next you will pretty much just have to farm dungeons till you hit 70. Instead of farming dungeons, you could also start the Arcatraz key quest line. I have a guide for this, which will be posted below the video as well. Another thing you can do is to focus on Shadow Moon and Netherstorm quests. The reason why you want to focus on these are because there are some group quests and these reward some pre-raid biz for some of the classes in the game. The last thing in this guide is gonna be me talking about what I will do when I hit 70. And of course I'll buy Flying Mount so I can get into Arcatraz, so I can do my quest and actually be attuned for Kara. The next thing I would most likely focus on would be professions. Some of the items you can craft will last all the way till tier 5 content, and this is the reason that I think it's important you start focusing on this, as it will be your biz gear for quite a while. Talking about biz gear, of course we have to work on our pre-biz gear too. Else there's gonna be another one that's actually focused a bit more, and he might get your raid spot eventually. At the same time, yeah, we will be 70 by now, and Shatar Rip is something we haven't worked on yet, because it requires you to be 70 and have flying in order to start doing this. So this is something you really have to focus on as well, as you will need it for the heroic keys. The last two things you have to work on is of course Shatar Rep, because you will need the heroic key most likely for some of the rewards, or at least for more badges. And regarding the shoulder enchants, yeah, the tomes are for squires and the armaments are for Aldor, and these will actually have some good rewards as well, so definitely something you have to work on early on, as the armaments and the tomes will become more expensive as we progress. Thank you so much for watching my guide. In case you would like to see more TBC content, make sure to look to your right. As I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna link the guide for the Kara Attunement part below the video, together with the Sethekk Halls key guide.